I didn't realize that that would also open the door to so much hate, which has frankly been pretty devastating.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Behavioral Arts. My name is Spidey and I use my degree in sociology and psychology, my certifications in criminal interrogation and body language analysis, and over 10 years experience as an award-winning mentalist to teach people behavioral analysis and practical psychology on stage and television shows all over the world. After going insanely viral for her breaking performance at the 2024 Olympics, Rachael Gunn, otherwise known as Raygun, posted a video on her Instagram addressing the accusations and criticism. She represented Australia at the Olympics as the female breaking competitor and scored 0 points over 3 battles, which doesn't mean exactly what it sounds like, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but this is the first time she addressed what happened as well as the massive public reaction to her performance. In this video, we're going to look at her body language, facial expressions, and word choice to try to figure out how she really feels towards the whole situation and where her priorities are. I also have a really exciting interview that I did with someone who gave so much insight about this entire situation, and I think you guys are going to love it. Can't wait. But before we get to any of that, I just want to talk about last week's video really quick. In last week's video, since she hadn't addressed anything at the time that I filmed, we looked at some older interviews of her before the Olympics to try to see where her confidence was and if she thought that she had a place at the Olympics. And if you didn't see that video, don't worry about it because this one's really about her response and all the context will be provided. But I do want to take a quick second to thank you guys so much for the amazingly positive feedback and welcome all the new subscribers from that video. I was a little nervous to talk about something that hasn't been a big part of my life in about 20 years because in high school I was obsessed with breaking. I'd watch videos all day, I'd go to events, so when she was talking about it, I understood what she was saying, and combined with the body language and facial expressions, I was able to form a more holistic understanding of where the red flags were. And the feedback was some of the best I've ever had on any video. Many of you expressed that it clarified a lot of confusing elements of this story and how it could have happened, and not just from the subscribers, but I got a lot of positive comments from the breaking community as well, who expressed that the video explained the situation and its problems in very easy to understand terms. And I really appreciate that because I'm not an expert on the subject, I just understand the language well. So it was really great to see that. So just wanted to thank everyone. With that said, let's dive right into her video here and have a look at what's going on. And then after that, I have a really exciting guest for an awesome interview that I had so much fun with. A lot of exciting stuff. Let's go.
Hi everyone, Raygun here. I just want to start by thanking all the people who have supported me. I really appreciate the positivity and I'm glad I was able to bring some joy into your lives. That's what I hoped. I didn't realize that that would also open the door to so much hate, which has frankly been pretty devastating. Well, I went out there and I had fun. I did take it very seriously. I worked my butt off preparing for the Olympics and I gave my all, truly. I'm honoured to have been a part of the Australian Olympic team and to be part of breaking's Olympic debut.
Okay, a lot of great stuff happening here with facial expressions, and I want you to pay a lot of attention to the difference in the way that she emphasizes positive things and negative things. But we'll get to that in a second because right at the top, there's some really interesting stuff as well. So you'll notice in the beginning, as soon as the video starts, we see her smile come in first before she speaks. And it's a smile with the lips downturned, but we know it's a smile because the eyes kind of squint and we see those cheeks bubble up. So it's one of these smiles where the face is smiling, but not necessarily the mouth. But it's not so much the muscles that are important, it's the timing. Because she smiles first, then goes, "Hey everybody, Raygun here," and starts to talk.
Hi everyone, Raygun here.
The smile isn't happening with the speech, right? Like if I walk into a place and I see people I'm happy to see and go, "Hey everyone," where I speak and smile at the same time, because that one thought is causing both what I'm saying and the expression of it. So here it's out of sync. Smile first, then she speaks, which would suggest that the smile is her just putting that on. So it almost goes with that internal monologue of her going, "Okay, put your smile on and go." Smile, and then I go. So it's already suggesting right in the beginning that She's not actually happy to be making this video. It's, okay, put on your smiley face and then talk to the audience. On the next sentence, we get 2 moments of emphasis that are very consistent with her baseline, even if we look at the pre-Olympic interviews that we were talking about last week. So she has something that she does where when she emphasizes something, her voice goes up and her chin comes forward like this. So she'll emphasize like this a lot. We see it here several times. We see it as she's saying, I want to thank all the people who supported me. Then we see another little one. And then she says, I really appreciate the positivity. And we see it again. So whenever that voice goes up and she emphasizes. However, on those 2 occasions with all the people as well as the positivity, we also see a big eyebrow flash. So she goes, all the people, I appreciate the positivity.
Thanking all the people. I really appreciate the positivity and
seeing the eyebrows go up mid-conversation, or what we call the eyebrow flash, is extremely important to human communication pretty much everywhere in the world. And the research has shown that one of the places we see this the most often is with emphasis. We emphasize things that are important with the eyebrows, again, universally. So if you listen to what she's saying and just look at when those eyebrow flashes hit, she's literally signaling to you what's important to her about this message. I believe this is a person who has the capacity to be very optimistic or look at things optimistically. She would have to be, right? In order to go perform at the Olympics with the amount of confidence that she had, despite the fact that she's not as advanced as some of the other competitors, she would have to be someone who has the capacity to focus on positive and kind of mute the negative. And we're seeing that here. She's starting the video by saying, there's all this positivity out there. Emphasize like, there's all this positivity. That's what I'm focusing on. That's what's getting me through this. And maybe some of you should also consider that there's some positive feedback out there. Putting the emphasis on this good, this positivity, this support. The next sentence out of her mouth, once again, focuses on the positive because she says, I'm glad I was able to bring some joy into your lives. And again, with joy, we see the eyebrow flash with that chin emphasis exactly the same way that it landed on every positive idea or word. But the rest of her body language gives her away on this one because as she says, I'm glad, we see a few things. The first thing we see is a one-sided shoulder shrug. So as she's saying, I'm glad, we see just one shoulder rise. Now, this is a really interesting video because I'm really not sure how she's filming it. At first, it looks like she might just be holding a phone, but it's way too stable for that. Like there's very few movements here and there, but even as she's moving and she's articulating and she's getting emotional, we're not seeing in any way the thing, angle or shift like we would see if she was holding the phone. So maybe it's someone else holding it, or maybe she has like a little mount for it with some kind of stabilizer. I'm not really sure, but that would be important to know if her one-sided shoulder shrug is really just one shoulder, or if it was meant to be both, but she's holding something, so we only see that left shoulder pop. We often look for shrugs to see if they're one-sided or two-sided because when we actually don't know something, or we feel an incapacity, or it's actually just a subconscious shrug, it's very often, most of the time, both shoulders. We're not thinking about it. We're not illustrating on purpose. But when we lack confidence and we're trying to sell something, we often see that one shoulder as a way for us to make that effort to sell something. I'm glad this happened. So I would love to know if that was actually one-sided or not. But that shrug isn't the only thing that we're seeing in that moment. At the very same time as that shrug happens, we see her lips turn downwards and we see some tension on the mouth. Now, this isn't the only time we're going to see this in the video. We will see it other times, and it could just be her swallowing before she says her next sentence. But even if it's a hard swallow to the point where we're seeing tension on the lips when it's happening, it's a good indication of stress or discomfort. In normal, calm conversation, we're not supposed to be able to identify the specific moment someone is swallowing. You'll notice even in cartoons, when a character is nervous, you see this big gulp of nervousness, and that reflects real behaviors. So whether it's a swallow or just this moment of tension, there's stress in that moment around this topic. After the tension in the mouth and the one-sided shoulder shrug, we get several indications that this has a negative feeling that she's trying to shift towards positive. Because one of the things we see right after I'm glad I was able to, unable, we see this kind of jerky tossing with the head towards her right. Now, throughout this, we're not seeing this a lot. We are seeing a lot of head tilts, And this is something that we do when we request sympathy or we try to connect with someone sympathetically. We see a lot of head tilts, but this kind of throwaway is not very common. After the throwaway gesture, she says the word joy, right? So I was able to bring joy. And with joy, again, we see the emphasis with the chin and the eyebrows. So again, this is her mind taking this negativity and trying to focus on the positive, the joy. But immediately after joy, we see an instant increase of blink rate. Now, I wouldn't call it a flutter because a flutter is really rapid, but after the word joy, it goes blink, 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 and then an eye block. And this is whenever we close our eyes for a little bit longer than what's normally a blink. So we see blink, 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 eye block, as she's talking about this joy that her performance has created. An eye block is something we often see when we don't want to face something, whether you get bad news or there's something you just don't want to deal with. We see this kind of eye blocking. And the research has shown that this helps us refocus or access different thoughts. So it's very common to see this as we try to shift away from that negative. And then she says the thing that for me really locks in this attempt to reshift towards the positive that we're seeing with her nonverbal communication, because she says, that's what I had hoped, to bring joy to people. And my question is that really what you had hoped for? Like, was that your ultimate hope? Was your hope to bring joy to people? Or was it to compete at the Olympics, to maybe place on the podium, to represent your country, to represent breaking, to be praised, to be talked about positively? I bet she had a list of hopes. And because a lot of those didn't work out, but somehow she brought joy to people, her mind is just shifting on, okay, focus on that joy. And the great thing about this is that we're seeing that attempt in her body language. Next, she says, I didn't realize it would open the door to so much hate. And notice how this time, door, hate, the voice emphasizes it. We see that same chin thrust from earlier, but we don't see those eyebrow flashes.
Open the door to so much hate.
With the first one, with door, there's a very quick, small eyebrow raise, but it's definitely not that big emphasis from earlier with the positivity and all the people. It's not that big emphasis. It's this quick emphasis, but that chin thrust is still there. And I want you to notice how, with the door, how much more confrontational it feels. That chin thrust, earlier it kind of blended with that emphasis. When she said, I want to thank all the people for the positivity, it kind of blended. But here we're noticing that bit of a chin thrust. It is part of her baseline, but without the eyebrows, it kind of does seem a little more confrontational. Then she goes on to say that it's frankly been pretty devastating. And with devastating, we see quite a few things. First, we see again that blink rate go up. It's not quite to that place where it's a flutter. Flutter is usually indicating emotional or thought processing. This is more consistent with stress because it's like blink, 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 blink. And we also see again that mouth downturned with that tension, which again could be a swallow or just a moment of tension, but one way or the other, stress. We also see, as she's about to say devastating, there's these little nods. And it ends with that emphasis that she does with the chin forward like this. Again, no eyebrows, so this is negative emphasis for her. But just before that, we see these little nods. And after she says it, we see one more kind of nod almost to herself like this. So these little nods that we're seeing, especially that one right at the end, look like the nods that we have when it comes to certainty. Like when we say something that we're sure of and we're just nodding to be like, no, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened. It's like, yeah, that's how I feel about it. So it's kind of these little nods of like, yeah, I'm absolutely devastated about this. Just these confirmation nods. Now you will notice, despite using a very strong word like devastating and having these little nods, especially that one at the end, to really kind of anchor that in, we're not seeing the emotion on her face of being devastated or sad or angry. We're seeing stress, but no big emotion in this moment to go with this devastation. So does that mean that she's not necessarily feeling the emotion? Not necessarily. There's a difference between feeling emotion and talking about feeling emotion. Like she's been going through this for whatever amount of time between she went viral and filming this video. I'm sure she had moments of devastation. I mean, who wouldn't? I don't think any human being on the planet this could happen to, and we wouldn't be devastated or really heartbroken over it. So she for sure had those moments, but right now in talking about it, she's keeping it together. In this moment, she's dealing with it. Does it make me curious? Does it make me want to ask a couple more questions about, okay, that's interesting. Talk to me about the way you felt. In an interrogation room, that's what I would want to do because the emotion isn't matching the words. However, it's very possible that all I would find is, yeah, in this moment, she's filming a video, she didn't go to that emotion. Just like we might talk about someone that we love that we lost, and we might be able to talk about it without getting emotional in this moment while acknowledging that it was very emotional, at that time, or even now, just not in this exact moment. Then she says, I did take it very seriously, emphasizing each word. And again, we're getting those yeses with the head. I did take it very seriously. So real emphasis on this with that yes of like conviction. But immediately after that, that confidence shifts. As she says, I worked my butt off. And we see two things. We see an eye block. So again, the eyes closed for a second. And then we see a no gesture. I worked my butt off with the no gesture.
I worked my butt off preparing for the Olympics.
Now I talk about this no gesture a lot because it's one of the most misinterpreted things in all of body language, because a lot of people out there assume that the moment you see someone do this while they're making a statement, it's because they're lying, because they disagree with themselves and they're saying, oh my God, it's a lie. First of all, there isn't a single indication on the planet that will allow you to know someone's lying just by seeing one gesture. It doesn't exist. But even if it did, this would definitely not be it, because a lot of people emphasize with no. Like you might do something that was really awesome and you go, oh my God, it was so much fun. Like you wouldn't believe how fun it was. Or you might see a parent come up from a PTA meeting and say, we had a long conversation with your teacher. So the no of disapproval or disappointment. So we see this in a lot of contexts where it doesn't necessarily mean the person doesn't believe what they're saying. It can mean that. And in this case, with that eye block saying, I worked my butt off, I might have some questions in an interview room to try to dig into that to say, okay, how did you work? What were your workouts? What were your practice sessions? Were you watching these other competitors? I would have a lot of questions about that. But let's also leave the possibility open that this simply means like there's a narrative out there that I didn't work hard and that narrative is false. You have no idea how hard I worked for this, which would also make sense with that eye block. One way or the other, interesting behaviors. I would want to ask more questions, but it's very possibly that. And then she says that I'm honored to have been part of Australia's breaking team and part of breaking's debut at the Olympics. But whatever she's saying, she starts with I'm honored and then talks about her journey. And as she says I'm honored, we see the eyebrows of sadness and she holds them. And there were quick, tiny little flashes earlier up until now. And we've seen this with her before, but this is the moment that it happened the most up until now, where we saw the inner corners of the eyebrows go up and close together like this. So in other places when she emphasizes, it's the whole eyebrow that comes up. In this case, we literally see those middle corners just coming up and forming what I call Atari eyebrows. So this kind of downwards and outwards slope like this. And this is very consistent with sadness all over the world, and it's difficult to fake. Some people could do it, very few can do it, but to just be able conversationally to bring just the inner corner up. And a lot of people will often say, oh, I could totally do it. And then they show me and they can't. It's literally just those inner corners coming up like this. So there's a sadness around this. I think it's very possible that in her head, as she's talking about how honored she was to be there, she also knows that that led not only to this massive criticism from all over the world, but also to the future of breaking at the Olympics. That's a massive burden to carry.
What the other athletes have achieved has just been phenomenal. In regards to the allegations and misinformation floating around, I'd like to ask everyone to please refer to the recent statement made by the AOC, as well as the posts on the Ozbreaking Instagram page, as well as the WDSF Breaking for Gold page. Bit of a fun fact for you. There are actually no points in breaking. If you want to see how the judges thought I compared to my opponents, you can actually see the comparison percentages across the 5 criteria on Olympics.com. All the results are there. I'm going to be in Europe for a few weeks for some pre-planned downtime, but I'd really like to ask the press to please stop harassing my family, my friends, the Australian breaking community, and the broader street dance community. Everyone has been through a lot as a result of this, so I ask you to please respect their privacy. I'll be happy to answer more questions on my return to Australia. Thanks, everyone.
All right, I'm going to keep this one quick because I really want to get to the interview, but there are a few key things. First, there's a lot of similar things that we saw from the first clip. Again, there are moments of that little sadness as she thinks about the repercussion of this across the community, across the breaking and street dancing community. We are seeing moments of emphasis in the same way, but there are things that we're seeing that are different, just overall. There are bursts here of very increased blink rate, especially when she's talking about the misinformation. All of a sudden, we see that blink rate go up big time because I think obviously the narrative that's out there is causing her quite a bit of stress. We also see a lot more hesitancy here and downwards gazes a lot more ums and looking down. I think that the first part of this statement was better prepared. That's why she looked down, she went, she did a stretch, and then another one. I think she'd really planned what she was going to say there, whereas for the second part, I think she had an idea of what she wanted to express without it being as concrete. So we're seeing a lot more her going down into that monologue, and also she's talking more directly about a performance here, so it does make sense that she would look down a little bit more towards those negative emotions, maybe a little bit of shame even as she's talking about this, because again, anyone in her position would be likely to feel a certain amount of shame associated to what's happened. I want to talk about something that she said that really caught my attention and is a great segue to my very special guest. And it's when she said there are actually no points in breaking. So she said, here's a little fun fact, there are actually no points in breaking. And in that moment, we actually saw, I think, the biggest smile. There's even a bit of a laugh that we saw in this entire clip. So there's this moment of joy where she's imparting wisdom. She's kind of affirming that she does know about breaking. Like, listen, there are no points. And she's kind of happy about telling us about the point system. Then she says, if you want to see how the judges thought I compared to the opponents, you can go on the website of the Olympics and see the 5 criteria and how she ranked. So quite a few things about this. First, technically she's right to where you're not awarded points in breaking. Like nobody says, here's how many points we're giving you. You're rated against the opponent. It's a 0 or 1 kind of system where it's like it's either this person or that person. So by directing people to go to the Olympics, you will realize that the judges didn't look at her and go, your performance was a 0. That's not what happened. That's not what that 0 means. However, we're going to see the truth that she almost never outperformed her opponent on any points. Very few times. And almost always, I think it was in creativity, we're going to talk about that a little bit later, where 1 or 2 judges thought she was slightly more creative than her other opponent. But it still wasn't enough overall to give her any points. So yes, technically she's right. It's not a score of 0, but even by going to that website, you'll see that she really didn't do very well. So it's kind of strange that she's directing people to the website because yeah, we'll see that it's not a 0, but we'll also notice that it's really bad. But just the fact that the Olympics has posted the 5 criteria and the scores that each competitor got, for me is a giant indication of the problem with breaking at the Olympics, which is something I brought up last week. Because on the Olympics website, this isn't an independent website reporting, this is on the official Olympics website, and I linked them last time and I'll link them here as well. There are 2 different pages that describe breaking, and they both list and describe 2 completely different ranking systems. One is the 5 criteria system that was used in the Olympics that's now on their website displaying the points, and the other one is this 6 criteria list, and I have no idea where that came from. Nobody at the Olympics used that. There are terms in there that are a little bit different. There's been a criteria that's been added. I have no idea where it came from, but at the time that I'm filming this video, it's still there on the Olympics website. So the Olympics themselves don't understand how breaking is scored to the point where their website has wrong information on it that they themselves did not use. And overall, there seems to be some confusion and an issue with the way breaking is scored. Because at the end of the day, one of the questions that we all keep going back to is, forget losing at the Olympics. How was she even there? That's a really big question that has been going around all our heads for a very long time now. Is it a problem with the infrastructure? Is it a problem with how hard it is to score something that's, yes, very athletic, but also very artistic? So it's very hard to rate it objectively. Is it that she was very stressed at the Olympics and it didn't reflect her best capacity. Like maybe she was much better at the qualifiers. So these are all questions that I had and wanted to bring someone to really talk about the details of all this so we could just finally understand everything that happened. I am super excited to introduce my guest this week. He's been a longtime friend of mine. We met on the set of a TV show, but his resume is honestly incredible. Like I had to purposely condense, but he's worked with major celebrities, choreographed and danced with Missy Elliott, LL Cool J, Janet Jackson, Pink. He's been featured in so many movies that we would be here for 8 hours if I had to list them all. But to name a few, he was in several Step Up movies. He was in several Bring It On movies. Do you guys remember You Got Served, the 2000s breaking movie, where there was a guy who was sitting down like this praying, and then he flipped 3 times backwards and then did a head spin that lasted about 7 days? That was him. That's legit him. And he's done tons more movies. He's danced at the Grammys, the Emmys, at the actual Olympics opening ceremony in 2004, countless events. And I'm so glad to welcome him to the stream. Everybody welcome my friend, Ivan Flips Velez.
Let's go. What's up?
What's up, man? I am so excited that like this worked out because like this breakdancing thing happens and I text you and I'm like, dude, what is going on? And you had so many cool insights because you were at the Olympics this year. You were on site and you're very involved in all this stuff and you just had such incredible stuff. So I was like, you got to come talk to the viewers about this.
I'm so excited to be here. You have no idea. And there's so much to deep dive into. So I am ready. I'm so thrilled. You look awesome. Oh my God. You take me right back to set. It's so crazy. Like we're going to go perform right now.
I know, man. It was wild. Like the context in which we met, like this show was just because it was like 6 weeks nonstop of like go, go, go. And you were like our guardian angel, dude. I've never been taught fight choreography. And like you taught me. Remember when we had the glass, the candy bottles?
The sugar glass.
So fun. And like we just needed like 2, but we ordered like 8. We ordered like 8
for rehearsals.
And you know, I'm so glad that we're starting with this because it flows into actually one of my questions that we were talking about. And I think it's a good place to start as well because when we were hanging out casually and you were there, it almost seemed like to you breaking is the way I speak. Like you rarely have to think about the words you're going to say next. Sure, every now and then we stumble, we think about the best way to say something, but language is thoughtless. You know, movement often when you're walking from point A to point B is thoughtless. I saw in you that breaking is also thoughtless. It's just seamless. Like you would like mid conversation, you would just start spinning. Oh, there goes Flips. He's spinning again. And you just knew what you were doing. It's a language you understood. But you were talking about how for Raygun, and we see this behaviorally, but I want you to talk about it from a dance perspective. There are certain things that you feel for her aren't as second nature as some of the individuals you've worked with who speak the breaking language. Can you elaborate on that?
Yes. So when it comes to technique, you've done it for so long. I've been breaking for 30 years. So like you were saying, I can finish a sentence while I'm moving. Even in Raygun's scenario, for instance, she was looking for the next move. Now, you are on an Olympic platform, right? You do get the jitters. Sometimes you blank out. And I'm wondering if she was going through some of that or experiencing some of that. She has to change her battle tactics every time she's battling a different person. You can't repeat the same moves. So if you don't have a big artillery of movement, you don't have a lot of vocabulary, you start to run out of things. The other thing is you have to strategize. It's like playing chess. If they start with a round, how do you answer back to your round? Do you have a move that can answer back to their round? Or did you waste it in the battle before? Or are you saving it for the battle after? All of this happens simultaneously while you're listening to music about to go down for 60 seconds. So it does take a lot. It actually takes a lot of discipline. And like I was saying earlier, it's like playing a game of chess. You don't have that much time to think and strategize, but that's why you rehearse. That's why you practice. That's where you get your technique. It's endless and endless hours. What we call the dojo or the lab or your garage or your dance studio, and you're constantly drilling these moves so that you know when you need to have that conversation, dance conversation, which is a battle, and you're able to elaborate and answer back in time, in real time. Like in Raygun's shoes, it's very difficult to perform at a very high level with all of these things up on the table. It's very difficult to balance. And I have to say that because I saw some of the comments as well. And I love that you were breaking it down. I love in your analysis, I call it the breakdown. When you were breaking it down in your analysis, you're really going through her emotions. She's showing you what she's going through inside, and we're judging her by what she's showing us outside. So it was a really, really great way for you to segue into this conversation, because a lot of people have no idea what she was going through. Was she completely fearful, full of fear? And fear causes you to not act. Fear causes you to doubt, which means you're sitting there waiting to feel that you're ready to go.
One of the things is the behaviors that we're seeing on her while she's dancing actually support what you're saying, because we would often see when she was doing her top rock, and that's, again, when it's everything that happens before you guys hit the floor. We see her eyes go up and she's thinking, okay, what do I do next? So she's in thought as opposed to just dancing, which is something I've never seen with you or some of your colleagues, which is just you're focusing, you're in the moment, you're looking at your opponent, there's eye contact, like you're living that moment because you don't have to think about the moves. That's natural. But that having been said, let me ask you this. You're talking about how the nerves could have gone to her and affected every component. And in a moment here, we're going to look at what the components are and what zeros across the board actually mean, because it's not what everyone thinks. But before we look at that, you've seen other performances of Raygun, and I have this really important question. We actually didn't discuss this backstage. I want to save it for the interview. Is what you saw her do at the Olympics consistent with what you've seen her do elsewhere in other battles, or did the nerves really affect her to the point where you looked at it and went, no, I've seen her do much better than this? So is it more or less the same, worse, or much worse?
Well, in other videos that I've seen her battle and the qualifiers, she seemed more free. She seemed more, she was able to have a conversation with her opponents, and she didn't seem very nervous in her qualifiers. In the Olympics, she did seem nervous, or that she was like looking for moves, or maybe she blanked out a bit, or maybe she's saving some of her movement. But now on the freestyle tip, she went to, I would say, different types of movement. Like we didn't see some of those in the qualifiers, as far as I know she pulled out like the kangaroo movement and all that stuff. Now, like you said in your video, I hope people tune into your video. You did a really great breakdown of it. It's creativity, but you also have to tick all of the boxes. You can't just sacrifice one and then let the others go, right? Yeah, I'm being creative. Yeah, but where's the vocabulary? Where's the technique? Where's the musicality? Was it in rhythm, right? You cannot just be creative. That's only ticking one box, like you were saying in your video, which is, it's actually really great to cross-analyze with me, because I'm thinking the same thing and we speak the same language, though you don't really break the way that I break, but we understand what we're watching, and the way that we're dissecting it, it makes perfect sense. So in terms of skill and what she displayed, I would say she's beginner intermediate. Now, everyone else that was there, they are professionals, and they're at the top of their game. You're talking about the best of the best. And then here she is, beginner intermediate, trying to flow her way through and trying to figure it out. And even the movement, I mean, Logistix is doing air flares. There's a couple of them that were doing air flares, B-twists. They were doing aerials. They were doing ninjas, missiles, all sorts of like new, improved, and involved breaking moves. I think she was still stuck back in time. She was doing the swipes.
Yeah, I just want to jump in there. So sorry to cut you off, Flips, but I want to clarify that in her, we saw a video where she was interviewing, and you and I were talking about it, where at some point I said she was attempting air flares. The move is actually called swipes. It's kind of like an air flare, but you'll land in between, like as opposed to just keep spinning. But like to me, I couldn't really tell what she was attempting. But the swipes are like the ancestor of the air flares. So it's the same family. But to your point, a lot of these breakers have like extremely technical, like new, difficult, athletic moves. And whereas for her, from what I've seen, the closest thing she has to a power move is that swipe, which is also, you could correct me if I'm wrong, not technically that great.
Well, yeah, I mean, for the Olympics and for this caliber and level of dance, yes. And also in the video, just to bring it up, you made a very great point. She referred to J Attack, who was doing air flares. She was doing swipes, right? Which is the older move, the late 70s, early 80s move, which was great back then, but you're talking 2024, right? So fast forward 40 years later, and we're still seeing that move. And her colleague from Australia, J Attack, is doing air flares, elbow air flares, continuous, right?
So here's a question for you regarding all this, and I'm really curious to your answer. Can a breakdancer, I'm not saying has it happened, because I know it's happened in a few outlier cases, but can you have a breakdancer at the top of the game who doesn't do power moves? Is that possible? Because she focuses a lot in saying, power moves aren't my specialty, which I thought was a bit of a ridiculous statement. Every breaker should have some power moves that is their specialty, some freezes that are their specialty. It didn't make sense to me that she goes, freezes and power moves, not my thing. Can you be an amazing breaker without those elements?
At a caliber like this in the Olympics, with criteria set, you should be an all-around breaker. You should be an all-around B-boy, B-girl. Now, if you're doing individual battles, which will not take you to the Olympics and you will not qualify for the Olympics, you can go to a battle that specifies on Cypher Addicts, just footwork, right? Or Circle Kings, just top rock. There are specific events for that, but those events will not take you to the Olympics. If you're trying to go to the Olympics and you're trying to fuse everything together, you have to have power and you have to combine, you have to have combinations. They're able to fuse in a hybrid the art and the passion in their DNA, and through their body flush out the acrobatics and all of the moves, all the dynamics, all the fuel, all the fire, and lay it on the floor like Hero 10. Hero 10 ended up in tears because he put it all on the line, all on the floor against Victor. The audience felt it, and he was the people's champ. Before they crowned gold, silver, and bronze, Hero 10 had everyone's heart, everybody's heart. It rippled throughout the world that how can you be that athletic, that on point, that technical, have that much arsenal and vocabulary in one solo, and you don't win, and you don't podium, and you don't get gold, silver, or bronze, and no one else has touched the level that you just laid out. It's pretty mind-blowing.
Dude, such great points. And it's a question I've often asked myself when it comes specifically to Raygun, and it's, do I believe that she believes she belongs there? Like, does she think? Like, you look at it and go, look, the passion is there. You might like the art form, but the skill level isn't quite there. Does she know that when she sees other breakers? And I think it always goes back to her overvaluing her creativity and undervaluing the athleticism. But the Olympics is not an art exhibit. It's a competition for athleticism, which brings me to the next thing that you said. You said that in the contest, there were people who were connecting with the audience, that even to the point where you, an experienced breaking judge, looked at it and said, this is the winner, but then that person didn't win. That person didn't even stand on that podium. So that kind of puts into question the subjectivity of the ranking system. So I want to talk about the ranking system because people are really running with this idea that she scored zeros all over the map. And she did. She got nothing but zeros. And people are comparing this to gymnastics or diving or figure skating, to where if somebody got a zero, it would mean that they did nothing. They accomplished nothing, that they got 0 points. It doesn't necessarily mean that for breaking, because it's not your score, it's a comparative score. So can you walk us a little bit through how, in layman terms, in a way that you can explain it to a 6-year-old, what does it mean for someone to have all zeros? And does it mean that she did nothing of value the entire time?
Okay, so if it's based on percentages, you have the criteria. There's 5 criteria. They're worth 20%. And you're a judge, and you're using that slider to go up and down. If the other person, they're watching 2 people battle, not just one and judging one on a 1 to 10 or 1 to 100, you're watching 2 people. That slider goes towards the other person as you're lacking the fundamentals, the vocabulary, the musicality. As you're lacking that, they're not going to slide it that way. So as the other person, your opponent, is gaining that round, the entire round is being slid that way. No matter what you do, unless you don't dance at all, that's an incomplete. However, if I'm battling you, right, and you're doing your very, very, very best against me, and I'm doing way better than you, that slider is going to go towards me. Now, if you don't have 0%, it doesn't mean you didn't dance. It doesn't mean you didn't try. It just means you didn't earn, based on the criteria, not a bit of percentage against your opponent. Therefore, I got all the votes, right? And it looks like I scored and I won every round.
So just to clarify, I'm a judge and I have 5 points in front of me, and I have opponent 1, opponent 2. So flips versus Raygun. And I have this slider. So on creativity, I'm going to go ahead and give it to flips. And then on musicality, I'm going to go ahead and give it to flips. And then on this other point, I'll give that one to Raygun. Let's say on, I don't know, whatever point, doesn't matter. And then technicality, I go here. Vocabulary, I go here. But let's say on one of them, she was favored. That's still a 0, because overall, you still won more points from this judge. And that's happening 9 times. So it doesn't necessarily mean that there was never a point where they thought she did something good or did maybe even better on one point than her opponent. It's just consistently she wasn't better on all points than her opponent for all judges.
She was beat by her opponent on every round per criteria every time.
So flips, as an example, if we look at her first round against Logistix. So here we have 9 judges. We have the 5 criteria. As you said, the max anyone can get on any criteria is plus 20%. That would mean that the judge thought you brought nothing to the table and your opponent, did everything. So in this case, if we look at this, can you walk us through a little bit what we're seeing here with these numbers and what they would indicate?
Yes. So look at the criteria, right? Now, these judges all voted in real time. So you have technique, vocabulary, originality, execution, and musicality. Logistix scored every time. It's not that Raygun didn't do good on her musicality. She didn't do good on her execution. She didn't do good on her originality. She didn't do good on her vocabulary. A lot of people are thinking that's how the voting went. But there's 2 dancers out there being judged. So as that slider goes more towards Logistix, on every single round, it makes her look like she scores 0. Now, there's 9 judges and there's 2 rounds. So there's 18 votes total. Now, that color that comes up for Logistix is red. The audience only sees red. Red, 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 red. They automatically assume that she scored nothing, meaning she's at the bottom of the totem pole, and that's actually not true. It's per round and it's per criteria. So Logistix won every single round by every single judge in every single criteria.
So if we look at this and we look at originality, for example, we'll notice that in her round 1 against Logistix, the Spanish judge and the Korean judge actually gave that to Raygun. They said those 2 judges felt that she was more original than a little bit. I mean, it's marginal. It's +1 and then plus 0.8. So it's not like they thought she was much more original, just a little bit more original. And I think we can all agree that original would be a way to describe Raygun's routines.
Correct. I want to elaborate on that. There's 9 judges. So if 5 judges choose based on percentages higher for Logistix, it would still show that Raygun did not win that round. It would still be 0. So they have to be able to digest that too. That's why it's so great that you found this grid and you were able to pull it up. It just goes to show. And now Logistix, here's another thing about Logistix. When you're battling, you're playing chess. So if she sees Raygun's round is a bit lower than what she's about to throw, a very smart dancer like Logistix chooses to do less. She throws out less moves at a less caliber. Even if she sacrifices a bit of originality and she wins 5 over 4 from 9 judges, she won the round. So you also have to think people strategized against her, and maybe she didn't strategize well against them.
What I'm finding really interesting in the way that you're talking about is there are a lot of people out there who are angry at Raygun for like taking up somebody's spot at the Olympics or like insulting the art of breakdancing. And I'm seeing so much compassion from you as opposed to you looking at this woman who took something that's the love of your life. Like breakdown, the way you talk about breaking is for me the way I feel about mentalism or body language. Like if somebody went out there and represented mentalism on a global scale and did such a horrible job, I must admit I'd be angry at them. I'd say, how dare you, like show this to people, and now people think this is what we do. I'm not seeing any of that with you. Is there any, so I'm not trying to put you on the spotlight and be like, be pissed at Raygun. I'm not saying that at all. I'm admiring your compassion for her, but I'm wondering if any of you is looking at it going, she wasn't ready to represent breaking on this scale and it's hurting the industry. You now have friends out there who aren't going to get work because when they tell people that they break, people are going to think, oh, well, we don't want that. We don't want that at our event.
Right. Well, here's what I do have to say about it. I don't care if you just started breaking or if you've been breaking 30 years like me. You were at that level at one point, right? I was at that level in 1995. I was at that level. I just learned to swipe. I probably had a good couple windmills. My flares were scraping, and I had an idea in my mind that very, very soon I will be ready to take on the world or to take on the local jam or to take on the closest battle that I could get to start getting my name out there. I remember that feeling very well before I was an international champion or world record holder. I remember that feeling, and that feeling is what got me to do it and love it for 30 years. Now, would I in 1995 go for the Olympics, try it? In my heart of hearts, I would say no. I would have given 4 to 5 years of nothing but dedication, knowing the criteria. That's the other thing, is knowing what needs to get done, knowing what you have to have under your belt, knowing what you have to do to even come close to ticking those boxes against people like Logistix, NCC, and Kate, and Stephanie, and the world's best 671 from China. You think about, that's where the anger could come in, is they did that. They practiced and practiced, whether some of them have been breaking 12 years, some of them have been breaking 6 years, but they did that. You need years of training. So then don't be so harsh if she trained for years and her competition or where she came from or her local dance studio, if it only gave certain amount of caliber of skill. I was that kid too. I had to move out of Florida to hit the best of the best in New York, to then prep me for LA to go against all the savages out here to earn my slot, right? Like, this industry is the Olympics, and it's been going on for years. So I see it two ways. I see it as the B-boy that has compassion for this B-girl who wants to make a name for herself. And then I see it as this person who's been doing this for 30 years. And I feel like those boxes haven't been ticked the right way, or you would have been better prepared. So I don't want to bash anybody. I just want to say, when you come to a battle, come prepared.
And that brings me to my last question. And this is going to be a hard one for you to answer. Like, I'm going to put you on the spot with this, because what we're seeing here is a systemic problem. Because it's not just her confidence or her emphasizing the wrong thing that's getting her here, but there's a system in place that allowed her to get here. So at the very least, we have to accept that, yes, we could put some blame on her, but we also have to put a lot of blame on whatever this rating system is. It's not working because it doesn't have a subjective way to do it. So my question to you is this, and again, it's not going to be easy to answer, but with the current scoring system, as is right now, does breaking belong in the Olympics, given that we've seen the train wreck that could come from the current scoring system, from the way it's being done now?
Well, clearly it's not going to be in 2028. So this gives us time to fix the kinks. This is the first time it's been on such a huge platform. And we all know, from the very first car, the very first Tesla, the very first time we went to the moon, right? You have to work out the kinks. If it is in the judging system, it can be worked out. If it is in the placements and the rankings, it can be worked out. We have to go up the ladder to the WDSF, to the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, and really sit down and do what they call troubleshooting. What can we fix? What is the issue? What was the problem? How are these people ranking so highly? How are they scoring so low? There's a question, subjective questions about every single thing, because this is the first time it's been done, and it's the first time the audience sees it, digests it, and now they're vomiting the comments and everything that they feel. But if we do Brisbane 2032, best believe we're going to have people in place that can filter everything and just work out those kinks. And it's almost like, like a nut and a wrench. You got to tighten. You got to tighten here, loosen here to find that balance. And I will say, to have the back of the B-boys and the B-girls in the breaking community, I saw other sports that had people finishing last to the point where they shouldn't even have started the race. Running a marathon in times where, I mean, you can walk faster than that, right? And no one's bashing those sports. No one's bashing that country. And I'm like, you didn't even finish the podium. They gave gold, silver, and bronze. They were picking up all the popcorn and all the soda. People were leaving, and people were then finishing the finish line. Nobody made fun of that. And I feel like in an Olympic spirit is to uplift. So the first time breaking is put in such a platform, and we see such incredible top tier talent, people focus on this, which was not the top tier talent, and it was not the best representation of what we were trying to show, right? The caliber is there, the talent is there, the infrastructure needs to be tighter. Got to work out all the kinks, everything that needs to be worked out from the inside, the IOC, the WDSF, and these governing bodies, get everything in tip-top shape, and it'll be a better future. Now, also the scoring needs to be tallied up in a different way. So we'll see advance and moving forward what they're going to do for this scoring system, because you don't want to leave subjection, and you don't want to leave I don't know. How
opinion, like you don't want it to be so based on opinion, and so there could be some of that. But I think, and I completely agree here, and it's a great way to end it, that there needs to be a better base scoring system, to where it's like you get certain points for this, you get certain points for that. I don't know what it is, but they have to figure that out. That way you won't have subpar talent slip through the cracks, because it's not entirely based on a judge just going, I like this, I like that, which is important because these people are qualified. But I think that base scoring needs to be there.
Agreed. I mean, the future of this whole sport and dance depends on it. So they got to get it right.
Beautiful. So Flips, where do the viewers go to follow you? Because you're doing some great stuff. I'm really excited about the stuff you were talking to me about, where you're going to share some behind the scenes of some of the, you've worked on so many movies as a producer, a consultant, a performer, like you've got the scoop. And you were telling me some insane stuff, and you're going to start doing videos where you talk about some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Where can people find you? Where can they follow you? Where do we go?
Yes, I'm mainly on Instagram. I'm across the board, but mainly on Instagram as Ivan Flips Velez, and that's Flips with a Z and Velez. So IVAN FLIPZ VELEZ. And that's on X, that's on Instagram, that's on TikTok. That is on YouTube. That's on Facebook. I'm on across, and I post everything across all of them. So you get very similar content. But yeah, Ivan Velez Flips the Script. I'll be talking about all the movies I've done, commercials, tours, behind the scenes stuff, exclusive photos, exclusive content.
You were doing stunts as well for a while. You were the stand-in, the stuntman for, I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. I'll cut it out. You'll let me know. But Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say that publicly? Are we allowed to say that?
Yes, Spider-Man 3, and I was Chicken Little. I also did motion capture for Bumblebee for Transformers. So yeah, man.
Dude, I totally see it.
Way beyond breaking. But yeah, breaking, like I say, breaking broke the door, and I was able to get in. And also choreographed for the Michael Jackson show in Vegas, Cirque du Soleil. So
amazing. And I really hope everyone goes and checks out all the stuff you've done. It's crazy. You're one of the people that's the hardest to tell people, like my friend Flips, because it's like you know, most people, you got to like find all the best stuff they did, but you did so many things that are the best thing you've done that it's hard to like condense and be like Grammys, Emmys. It's wild. But Flips, it was absolutely awesome to have you on the stream. I'm so thankful that the insight you offer, the passion that you have, I think everybody's going to feel that right through the screen. And I hope everyone goes to check out your stuff and follow this journey and these stories that you have from such an amazing history in the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the platform. I love it. And thank you for helping me with my YouTube too.
All right, so there it was. I'm really thankful that Flips was able to join us and address really every element of what happened here. The skill level, the judging system, the nerves, the caliber, all of it. But I think the one takeaway for me, and I've been thinking about this since the interview with Flips, is how he's practicing compassion and grace in a situation where I'm not sure I'd be able to. If somebody went and represented mentalism on a massive global scale for the first time and really botched it and became this big joke on the internet, I'd be angry. I would say that this person now has told the world that this is what we do. And it hurts the business. It hurts an art form that is my passion. It's my life. And I know the relationship Flips has with breaking. He breathes it. He thinks it. It's how he lives. But despite that, I didn't feel any anger towards her from Flips. Even keeping in mind that the future of his great love, breaking in the Olympics, may now be compromised, it didn't seem like he took any opportunity to bash or condescend. And for me, that was a signal that if he can practice that kind of compassion, maybe that's a signal as to how we should be handling this a little bit as well. Because yes, she didn't belong there. Her skill level isn't quite up there, but there's an infrastructure issue as well and a judging issue as well that allowed for that to happen. So a lot to think about here. Let me know in the comments what you thought, and I'll see you on the next one.